Hello there everyone, and welcome back to this week's installment of my channel. And today we're going to be talking about all things related to books that you should be reading this fall / autumn, whichever you call it. I'm an autumn person, but I say fall because it's quicker and easier. And so I'm going to go over like my best kind of picks that I personally like to pick up and reread, or things I would like to read because of their atmospheric setting within the kind of either it feels like autumn or it's set in autumn, you know, all of that kind of stuff I'm going to go over here. And if you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to me, leaving a like on the video, and commenting down below, giving me your thoughts about, you know, if you agree with me that these books are indeed very autumn feeling and what you personally like to read in these kind of colder, chillier months coming up. So I'm just going to jump right in. My number one read that I always love to go back to in the autumn is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. So if you've been around the channel, which hopefully you guys have, and you've subscribed and you're seeing me because you're subscribed, hi, then you know that I love Tolkien's work, I love fantasy, and The Hobbit obviously started as a kind of a children's story that Tolkien told to his boys, and it just has the nicest, most cozy feeling to it, despite obviously it goes off into adventure, it becomes very grand, but because of Bilbo being the main character, it kind of stays very down to earth, very hobbity at its core, and just very kind of, you want to curl up in a blanket. It's very comforting. It's a very comforting read. It might just be a me thing, but from what I understand talking to other people, they also kind of share the same sentiment that because it was kind of written as a children's story in some ways, it feels just so comforting and cozy and lovely to read. And this is a great time of year to read it. So that is like my favorite one to revisit. My second, this is actually a relatively new edition, The Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo. It's within the Grishaverse fantasy realm that she's created. And these books happen, I think it's 2 or 3, maybe 4 years after Shadow and Bone trilogy. And the setting of it, the main setting being Ketterdam, a country kind of off in its own in Kirch, that it just feels very autumnal. It always rains. It's kind of, it just sounds a little bit like, to me, like almost like a industrial-esque London in England kind of setting, with the rain and the kind of general somewhat dark, cloudy feeling to it, and that also sets with its somewhat dark subject matter and the people that we look at are thieves and rogues and things like that. But that kind of setting always being talked about makes me feel like I just want to get a nice cup of tea and a blanket and like huddle down and read. And so that's why that book has made it onto this list of fall / autumnal reads for me. The third one, I guess it's like multiple ones, anything by Agatha Christie. And again, I know that I'm biased because I just love her novels and I love mystery and crime thriller. But Miss Marple, Hercule Poirot, both, all of the novels that Agatha Christie has put out there, they're either cozy mysteries or they're just like mysteries. It like in the time period set just makes it feel a little bit more quaint, makes it feel, it's not like, you know, a horrible, dingy kind of setting that is kind of somewhat associated with newer crime thrillers. It was something back in the 50s, 60s that was very common from kind of times before. It just feels really quite safe and secure to read them, and going after and following after Poirot's crazy brain and Miss Marple being the wicked, sharp, nice old lady. It just feels very cozy, comforting, and great for fall. And I guess on a similar kind of vein, honestly, anything that Edgar Allan Poe has written, poetry and short stories alike, I mean, come on, Gothic horror, and his kind of very haunting poetry being in the similar Gothic dark vein, is totally up for Halloween. I mean, come on, October, that's like what you should be reading in October, 110%. But if you want to get in the mood early, a lot of his works just generally kind of lend themselves to that vibe. If it's starting to get rainy where you guys are, if it's going to get cooler here in the kind of September, then these ones are great ones that put me in the mood for that kind of almost spooky time of year. And then I guess a good standalone, which is great for this time of year, is What the Night Knows by Dean Koontz. It was a novel that, it was like the first one that really truly scared me, that I read when I was like a teenager. It's really dark, very psychologically based. Obviously it's I guess a thriller would be its main category. And it follows, in this case, I think he's an investigator. It's been a while since I've read it. Follows a guy who is investigating these crazy kind of streams of crimes, and that it seems very much like a previous very horrible serial killer is doing the crimes again, or a copycat's there. It's just really eerie. The way that it's written and the way it's weaved, that's like it's raining, it's pouring rain outside, let me get this book and, like, you know, read under the covers kind of books. It's really, really good, really haunting. 100% recommend that one for this time of year specifically. And one I've recently read as well is The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. That was a book club read that we actually read for, gosh, when was it? I think it was for June or July, so it was kind of out of season for what I would say the book portrays. It's set in autumn. It's like right at the end of summer, and so it's amazing for this time of year to where I love reading things that give me the season I'm in. I know that's like really situational, but if you guys feel the same, comment down below. Let me know I'm not alone in that kind of sentiment. And so I was reading it in summer thinking, wow, this really totally does not feel like a summer read whatsoever. I need to read this in the fall. Obviously it kind of follows witches and the old tales of witches. It's set in New Salem, so like the Salem that was built after the original Salem was founded, and like the witch hunts and things like that. Focuses on three sisters who are all witches indeed, and that everyone can be a witch, which is a really which is a really cool concept, and very, very fall, autumnal, Halloweeny, which is great. And this is one of the ones I want to read, but from what I've heard of people that have read it, they say that it's quintessential autumnal kind of read is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. And funny enough, of all people, my mother gave me this one to read. I don't have it, with me, unfortunately. I'm going to have to purchase it. She's recommended it to me after she read it. It's very dark academia. It's a very literary-based kind of, I guess, almost Oxfordian murder mystery that happens. And it's a bunch of students. It's like, I'm not entirely sure of its actual setting. I don't know if it's US or UK. But the sound of it being obviously dark academia, that's literally school term, which mostly starts in autumn from September. So that's really topical, and that's on my list to read this actual autumn. So I'm very excited to start, and I haven't read. So if you've read it, give me a spoiler-free kind of thought in the comments. Another one I haven't yet read but gives me very big autumnal vibes is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I can't remember when this released. It was relatively recently, but as it sounds, it's a relatively modern take on Gothic literature. Set in 1950s Mexico. Nice spooky haunted house, spooky, creepy, weird people. I mean, that's the winner of a Gothic novel right there. Going on the blurb alone, I'm really excited to read it. And everyone that I've kind of spoken to that has read it has really praised its take on the Gothic genre being not only true to what we know it to be, looking at Frankenstein, looking at Edgar Allan Poe, the people who really formed this kind of Gothic feeling, this Gothic genre. It stays true to that, and it has a few more modern things that are really cool that actually are thematic to that. So I'm excited. Definitely want to read that one, clearly. And another one, okay, this is a bit weird because this is a general seasonal read for me, the Anne of Green Gables series by L.M. Montgomery. We follow Anne through all the seasons throughout the series. Every book, I think, goes through every season. It's really, really nice because it gives it a real cyclical, real feeling when you're reading along with Anne's journey. But there's that famous quote, "I'm glad I live in a world of Octobers," that Anne says when it's fall in the Green Gables. Which is just, that for me, that quote especially exemplifies the first Green Gables book of the series, and that's kind of one that I always associate with this time of year, even though we also see like the roll into winter, into spring, into summer, and that Anne loves all the seasons. But even still, it kind of feels cozy and warm and nice, like an autumnal read. So it's gone on my list. If you don't agree, let me know. But if you do agree, also let me know. Like the video. I mean, come on guys. You know the drill by now. And I get the final one that I have on here for my favorite autumnal feeling or kind of fall reads is the Harry Potter series. This follows a similar vein of thought of my Secret History kind of general vibe, is that it's academia themed. They always go back to school in the fall term. I mean, that's mainly why. And in the first book especially, we get a huge spotlight on Halloween that's done at Hogwarts. So that's like one of my favorites. It's also the shortest book, so I like to read that one quickly when the season comes about, get myself into the autumn spirit, and then do my own thing, you know, read more books. So all of that aside, that was actually my full list. It was a total of 10, I guess, but probably more than that because I've generally said, you know, anything by Agatha Christie. Well, spoiler alert, there's like 50 Agatha Christie books. Obviously you don't have to read all of those, but it's like a general kind of feeling of what feels like autumn or fall to me. And again, if you agree with me or disagree with me, leave me a comment down below. Tell me some of your favorite things to read in the fall and autumn. And I really hope that you all enjoy whatever it is you're reading right now. And you know, come back next time, subscribe to me so you know when I next release a video. It's normally every Friday. I've been pretty good about it. And I hope to see you next time.